Shalom. This is Talk from the Heart, and I'm your hostess, Dr. Patricia Venegas, and we're just so excited about having Erica back in studio with us this week. We are just hearing her testimony and just getting to know her better and just having a great time here in studio with her. So we're so excited that you tuned in this time with us. So Erica, we were talking about having you go through some inner healing and some deliverance. And when you came into my office the first time, you and your husband were separated.
Yes, we were.
So can you kind of catch me up from that point of what's gone on with your life?
I think what happened with my husband and I, we both got married young and we didn't know the Lord. Well, we knew of his existence, we just didn't have a relationship with him. But something that caught a lot of my attention in your book, it talked about how we tend to marry something that's similar to, either our father or mother. And my husband was just like my father.
Your biological father.
My biological father. He would drink a lot and he would always disrespect me with other women. And he was just not, something that obviously was good for me at the time. But I had that rescuing spirit where I always told myself, I can change him.
If you love him enough.
I'm going to love him so much that he's going to change. And we went through that surviving. And see, survival was very natural to me my whole life. So getting married to my husband and going on survival mode after every time we had a fight or he did something that was not okay for a husband to do, I would just go into that survival mode. I was just, keep going, and just let it go. And that's how I survived a lot of the years of my marriage. But I noticed when I really started to know the Lord and really something inside of me started to want something different. And I wanted change. And my husband at that moment, he didn't understand that it wasn't okay for him to disrespect me or to, be attracted to other women while I was his wife. So he didn't understand that. So when I was seeking change in my home, it just couldn't happen. He just didn't want to do it. So we were separated. I told him that I couldn't do it anymore. And, he made an appointment with you. And I remember that he was doubting whether to go to that appointment at the time we were separated. And I told the Lord, I said, you know what, Lord, if he doesn't go to this appointment, I'm going to end our marriage because I cannot continue to live like this. I cannot continue to have a marriage where we don't have you as a priority and we're trying to make the changes that are needed in our home. And if he's not going to put in the work, I can't do this anymore. And my husband went to the appointment, and the same thing as me. He was shocked. He came out of the appointment, and he told me, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to talk right now. So I knew I understood him. And I told him, you know what, don't worry about it. Go home, because at that time he wasn't living at our home anymore. So I told him, go home, spend time with God, and it'll come. And the next day I told him that he could come back home.
Wow.
I told him that he could come back home and that I was willing to give our marriage one more chance. And at that time, we were already married about 16 years.
And you have children.
And we have children. We have 3 beautiful boys, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And it's because of my kids that I really, really, really wanted change in my home. I really wanted I didn't want to play house anymore. I didn't want to play marriage. I wanted us to really show our kids what marriage was and how it should be based off God. And if you allow God to come into our marriage, how you can minister that to your children. And I really started to see that it's your actions that minister louder than your words. And I wanted to break strongholds. I wanted to break chains. And it was hard to get my husband to be at that place. I think I was running and he was slowly walking, and I wanted him to hurry up because I knew how important it was for our kids to see something healthy, to see a change.
Yeah. And marriage is symbolic of Christ in the church. The book of Ephesians in the Bible tells us that, and it's a great mystery. And it says that Yeshua, Jesus, is coming back for his bride without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, a glorious bride. But husbands are to love their wives as Christ loves the church. And wives are to come under the covering of their husband. And, you know, we don't understand how much spiritual warfare is over marriage. Satan absolutely hates marriage because it's symbolic of Christ and the church. And I think that you're in warfare, spiritual warfare. And so I know that marriage is not easy. And it's always so easy just to say we're getting a divorce and just quit. But you know how the Lord has shown me, because I've been through divorce and I've been through a blended family. And I praise God for my marriage today to Reverend Ben. But what I found is that when you go through a divorce and you have children, you go out looking for somebody because you're lonely. And then your ex-spouse finds somebody else, and pretty soon you've got two different families, and the kids are kind of left in the middle. And Satan loves that, and they're bounced back and forth and all over the place. And a lot of times a step-parent isn't really out for your children. They could really hurt your children or not really love them the way a true parent would love them. We've been so fortunate with Reverend Ben being a stepfather to my children, because he was really a great father to them. But that's not always the case, like you see in your case. And so it's such a battle to stay married. And even though you go through healing and deliverance, and the Lord's really taught me a lot with marriage, that we bring in baggage from our past, the hurts and pains, and we have all these pus pockets, and if they do something that it even resembles something that triggers us, we have all this emotion going on, and it might not even be what's really happening over here, but it triggers us in such a way. I call it post-traumatic stress, and it really hits those pus pockets inside of us. And how anger and bitterness and hatred and fighting happens. But once we're healed, then we have the temperaments.
Yes.
The temperaments, not temper, but temperaments. And I think I talk about that in the Bride of Christ. And then even the love languages. And so God has given us incredible ways to have a great marriage, but we have to fight for it sometimes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And with my husband, it was really hard because, see, I was trying to heal over here, and I'm trying to, okay, I don't have time to wait on you. I need to hurry, but the Lord just really stepped in, and he showed me, you know, my husband needed love, and he loves words of affirmation, and I wasn't giving him that. So he was walking around on empty, and I'm trying to get him to fill me because I need time. You know, I'm time. I need time. And
so you're talking about the 5 love languages.
Yes, the 5 love languages.
And there's a great book out there called The 5 Love Languages.
Yes.
And what happens is we can talk a different love language.
Yes.
The Bible talks about what love really is, but how we interpret love. And there's 5 different love languages. One is time, and then another words of affirmation, gifts, touch, and what's the last one? Let's see, time, touch, gifts, words, acts
of service.
Acts of service.
Acts of service.
And I kind of think that goes along with temperaments. There's 4 basic temperaments, and there's a really good book called The Spirit-Controlled Temperaments by Tim LaHaye, and then The 5 Love Languages by Chapman. And that just takes your marriage to a whole nother level. When you start finding that you can speak a different love language, and a lot of times our love language isn't the same, is it?
You know, it's majority of the times it's not the same. I think I always tell the Lord, I think you do this on purpose. You're trying to teach us patience and compassion, and just, you know, you put 2 opposite people together.
And what I found for my husband and I, when we first got together, we were like this. And we're opposites completely. But as we sandpapered each other over the years, we've come like this, and we work so well together now. And we've been married like 32 years, almost 33 years, and we're best friends. and we've so bonded with one another, and all the hell we've been through, all those challenges. The kids are grown. Now we've got grandkids and great-grandkids, and we just enjoy each other in such a friendship way now. But I'm so grateful that we sandpapered one another, but we hung in there.
Yes.
And what's amazing now, after this long of marriage, is we laugh at things that used to bug the daylights out of us. Things that would send me emotional, or, I would be so mad over, or he would be so mad over. We actually laugh about those things now, and what a different place it is as you've stayed in there, and you've hung in there, and you've raised your children together, and you have such history together. And to not let the enemy steal that.
Yes.
But I also think that Satan wants our kids.
Yes, and that's something that the Lord showed me one time. I was praying, my husband and I were fighting, and I kept telling the Lord, Lord, why do we fight so much? Why do we fight so much? And the Lord showed me, my son, my 5-year-old loves worship music, and he was playing the guitar, and he was singing a worship song, and the Lord showed me, he said, because the enemy wants him. And that's when it really hit me. Like, the enemy wants your children.
Amen.
They're innocent. They're innocent. And when you have your husband and your wife, you're covering over your children, you're protecting. When the husband and the wife separate, it leaves that openness, and that, the enemy can just come in, and he's just waiting. He's just waiting for us to just remove ourselves from our children. And that's what God really showed me with my kids.
Wow.
And it just really made a whole different way of seeing things for me,
So one of the things that the Lord showed me in marriage is I was so good at praying for my husband to change. Just, Lord, and I remember in this marriage, I was praying so hard for my husband to change. And a couple of things the Lord has shown me. One is, as a good wife, we're to pray for our spouse. We're to minister to our spouse. But as I was praying for God to change my husband, I wanted him to change in my image. And I remember the Lord saying to me, and I was really quite insulted. The Lord said, how about if I change him in my image first? Because if I change him into your image, then I'm going to have to do double work, because I'm still working on you. And I think it's so easy to see that it's all the other person's fault.
Yes.
And to blame them for everything. Yes. When so often we've picked broken people, and we're trying to get them to meet areas of our life that our parents didn't meet, and we're beating them over the head trying to get them to give us the love that we're so desperate to have in our love language.
Yes.
And they have no clue at what they're supposed to be doing. And I think of poor husbands that come in, and I know my youngest daughter, one day I had some people over I was ministering to, and after they left, she felt so rejected. And I hadn't rejected her, but she felt rejected. And she sat and cried for about 45 minutes of how horrible she felt, how awful I treated her. And I thought, this must feel like what husbands must go through, because it was not even what happened. But she couldn't see it from the truth of just her emotions, of what she was feeling and how she was feeling pushed aside and rejected, when I wasn't doing that at all. But how we can perceive certain things from our own hurt and pain, from our perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Especially in marriage. If you came from a childhood where you always felt rejection and abandonment, and your husband does something that maybe it triggers something inside, and it takes you back, you automatically feel that rejection, that abandonment, and then all that you had inside just goes towards your husband, where you don't pay attention to me, you don't show me that you love me, you don't work hard to show me. But in reality, God has really shown me that we need to really look for him to fill us up.
Wow.
That we need to stop going to our husband and our wives, that we need to go to the Lord first to fill us up, and then we're going to overflow into our spouses. And God really showed me that. He told me one day, you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to come to me. And God really started showing me my identity too, because I felt that if my husband rejected me, then I wasn't worth anything because of my growing up, you know. And the Lord showed me, you need to stop. I'm going to show you who I made you to be. And when he started showing me who I was, then I started to realize, like, you know what, Lord? Well, he's missing out. You know, I started to get that feeling like, wait a minute, he used to want to come and spend time with me, you know, and I would laugh with God like that. But, you know, it's true. It's true, and we need to know who we are and go to the Lord to fill us up so we can stop depending on man, because in reality, men, they don't understand. They're struggling with their own hurts and their own healing that they need to go through. And that's really something that the Lord put in my heart. And I felt like after that, I felt like something just changed in me. And I stopped, you know, asking so much of my husband, because I felt like, you know what, I'm going to go to the Lord. I'm going to spend more time with God. And that's something that I tend to do a lot. I go spend time with God, and then I go and, you know, and I try to spend time with my husband. But yeah, we need to get filled up with the Lord first.
What the Lord showed me is that we pick what's familiar. And a lot of times if we were dysfunctional growing up, we'll pick someone dysfunctional. And then we're constantly wanting them to meet those needs that we had that didn't get met growing up. And what the Lord showed me is that our hearts, our emotions are like a bank account. And if I want to write you a check for $100, I have to have at least $100 in my bank account.
Yes.
And so often we're wanting someone to love us. We're looking to them to love us. But Satan has done such a great job on putting walls around their heart with rejection and abandonment, telling them love hurts, and they weren't accepted, they weren't loved, they don't have that reservoir of love in their heart to give us because they're empty. And we're going to broken vessels to get water, and there's no water in there.
Yes.
And what the Lord said to me is they can only give you what they have out of their account. So if they have rejection and abandonment, if they have anger, if they have abuse, if they have hatred, unforgiveness, all of those emotional things that the enemy is using on them, that's in their account. And you're asking them to give you something that they don't even have. And I love what Jeremiah 17 says. And Jeremiah 17:5 says, "Cursed is the man who puts his trust in man." And I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the word in front of me. But you will be, we look to man to be like our God, our strength, to the arm of man. And we're like a shrub in the wilderness. And when good comes, that we don't even recognize it. And what the Lord showed me in my own personal life, I was going to man to get love. I was going to them to get approval. And they didn't have it to give. And I was tumbling emotionally all over the place. I just couldn't get my footing in life emotionally. And then the word goes on to say, "But blessed is the man who puts his trust in the Lord." That you will be like a tree with your roots deep in living water. And even in drought, your leaves won't grow brown and you won't quit bearing fruit. And so the difference between a tumbleweed and a tree is huge. And there's going to be storms of life. And when all hell breaks loose in your life, if there's a death or an accident or losing of job or a virus that comes and everything's kind of topple-turvy on us, are we going to be that tumbleweed because we're looking for man to meet all of our need and we're putting our trust in man? Or are we going to be that solid tree where we won't be blown over in the day of drought? We won't be tossed around. We'll be strong. And I want to be that tree. Yes. But as you go to the Lord, then your roots are in deep living water. Yes. and you start bearing fruit. Pretty soon when husband comes home, you're not nagging him or saying, who did you look at today? Or let me see your phone. Or, you're not giving me any attention. And the poor guy's probably been out for 12 hours, a couple of hours in traffic and working all day in a hot day, and comes home, just wants to eat and getting smacked in the face when he comes home and give me more, or take care of the kids, or do this or do that. And we don't even understand how selfish we can be when we're trusting man and not trusting God. But it sounds now like your roots are deep in living water.
Yes.
And you're bearing fruit, and you can give to him freely because now you have something to give.
Yes. And that's something that was very important for our marriage. I honestly, if you would have told me a few years ago that I would be sitting here talking about my marriage and that we're together, and I would have said no way, because I was looking at it through the eyes of the world. But now I can tell you, I mean, I love my home. I love my husband. I love the marriage that we have.
Amen.
It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, because marriage is going through those struggles. But God has really shown me it's not. The struggles show you who you are and what strength you have. And when you have the Lord and you face struggles, you can do it together. And it's almost like you overcome it, and it's something that you just start growing. And the best thing of all, it starts to pour onto your children. And that's something that was very important to me, that I wanted my children to grow up in a stable home, in a loving home. And I said, it's a little crazy home because it can get hectic, but there is a lot of love in my home, and the Lord lives in my home. And I love that my kids know that they're loved. I tell my children every day, that I love them and that their dad loves them.
What I found in marriage is that love is a choice.
Yes.
And so often we think that, that excitement that we first get, we're on that honeymoon stage where we think our spouse is going to walk on water and just be this incredible person. And then we move in and we find out they're just people with a history. And pretty soon we think we're out of love. But there's an excitement that draws us to that person at the beginning, but it doesn't stay like that, because you go through trials and tribulations and you go through real life, but love is truly a choice.
Yes.
And when we read what the Bible talks about love, in 1 Corinthians 13, it's not bitter, it's not rude, it's not self-seeking, it's this and it's that. And that is the kind of love. And I think that once we understand God's love for us and his Hesed love, in the Greek it's called agape love, but in Hebrew there's another word for love, and it's called Hesed. And this Hesed love is from generation to generation, and it's covenantal. And boy, when you start understanding that kind of love and how much our Father loves us, the word Hesed again is generational. And when you read the Bible and you find out with King David, after he became king, he looked for someone in the bloodline of Saul. And he found Saul's grandson. And Saul's grandson had been hurt in running. He had hurt his feet. And the grandson thought that King David was going to kill him. But instead of killing him, he set him at the king's table, and he took care of him for the rest of his life, even being an invalid. But that's that Hesed love, that generational love, that love that doesn't die out. And so I want you to know that Hesed love that your Heavenly Father has for you, and that when you trust him with all of your heart, you're going to become that tree with your roots deep in living water and not tossed around when no longer are you looking to man that's broken to give you that kind of love. So until we meet again, until the next program, shalom.
Introducing the new Zulon Press book, The Bride of Christ Without Spot or Wrinkle, by Dr. Patricia Venegas. The Bride of Christ, Without Spot or Wrinkle, is available at Christian bookstores and online. Purchase it today.